media has been prepping the battlefield for the Biden White House, saying, oh, we may never know who dropped this dime bag of cocaine in the White House. We may never know. It will be an eternal mystery, just like that Supreme Court leaker, just like everything else that happens in this town that compromises the rule of law. It's, we can never figure out who did the bad thing. The big news this week is the fact that there was cocaine found in the White House. Now, what we've been seeing over the last several days is a slow motion cover-up by the Biden White House about the cocaine. Supposedly it was found Sunday night somewhere in the White House, allegedly first in the library, which is part of the personal section of the White House, the West Wing, so to speak. And they found the white powder. Evidently, they had to close the White House down because they didn't know what it was for security purposes, and they tested it, and it turned out to be cocaine. And since then, the White House has gone into damage control cover-up mode, refusing to say one way or the other whether the cocaine came from a member of the Biden family. Dan Bongino, our friend, is a former Secret Service agent at the top level, said, look, there's no way cocaine gets into the White House other than through a family member or I guess maybe a staff person. I doubt a Secret Service agent brought it in, but a family member would bypass the typical security procedures to get into the White House. And back during the last administration, I have been honored to go into the West Wing of the White House. And the West Wing of the White House is where the president works, and the Oval Office, and the other top staff of the president. And there are two entrances. There's an entrance, just think of the White House facing Pennsylvania Avenue. The entrances tend to be to the left on the White House there. And there's an entrance down at what I would call a basement type entrance. And then up a little bit in the front of the White House is another entrance, and that's the West Wing lobby entrance. And so we've had this, I call this magical bag, dime bag of cocaine kind of move throughout the White House. All these leaks changing where the location was. Now, the library is an area that is even less accessible than other areas of the White House, which would tend to suggest that maybe it was someone like Hunter or someone very close to the president or his staff who had access to that room where the cocaine was found. But since then, the leaks have changed the location of the dime bag's location. Now, the third leak, or the second leak, was up near where cell phones are kept by visitors when they visit the White House. Now, that's that top entrance I told you about. And so what happens is you go in, the door opens, and there's immediately to your left, there's a room that only a few people can stand in at once with a bunch of cubby holes or drawers where you can put your cell phone in. You're asked to put your cell phone in there. And it's full of security. I mean, there's obviously, there are great Marines at the door. There's at least 2 or 3 Secret Service agents immediately past the door. And so there's no way anyone's going to drop a dime bag of cocaine in that area without it being noticed. And then you go a few feet further, like 2 feet further, and to your right is a receptionist. And then there's this lobby area where people sit, and you see senior staff and other visitors for the president there on official business, or senior visitors for other senior officials in the White House are waiting. Again, a very small area, 2 couches. It's kind of like a bigger living room, right? And then you go down the hallway a little bit from that location. There's a diplomatic room. I think it's the diplomatic room or the Roosevelt room. I forget which room it's called. But anyway, there's a meeting room. Very nice. And just a few feet further, you get into the Oval Office area, the ante-room, the ante-office for the White House, for the Oval Office, and then the President's Oval Office. So initially they said this dime bag was found near where those phones were. So near is virtually everywhere in that section of the White House. The White House lobby, that public meeting room that I've told you about that's only accessible to people who've gone through security, And by the way, to get to the West Wing, you go through 2 levels of security. There's a front area, there's an area at 17th Street or the other side on 15th Street. And then to get into the West Wing, you have to go through another section of another security process, which is a bit more exhaustive. They look at your bags, you go through the magnetometer, et cetera. So you don't just show up off the street and go into the West Wing of the White House. So that's my way. And so now downstairs, so evidently that was a little too close to the Oval Office when they said they found that cocaine upstairs. So then there was a leak that said, oh, no, they found it downstairs. Now downstairs, it's even tighter than it is upstairs. You go downstairs, you walk into the area, there's immediately a Secret Service agent, I think a uniformed agent, sitting at a desk. And there's no, and the desk takes up most of the hallway. So you got to really walk around the desk, either to go upstairs to the West Wing's floor where the president is, or to get past him to go into what I believe to be the Situation Room. I've never been in there. And then there's the White House mess. And so this is a very small area. It's a small hallway area. You're in each other's way if you're even standing there. And so there's no way a dime bag's going to be dropped there, which is the third place it supposedly showed up, without anyone seeing it immediately. So what you're seeing here is an obvious cover-up. And I was laughing with one of my colleagues here, Chris Farrell, and it's like in Washington, that we're expected to believe it's Washington, D.C. Dime bags are just blowing all over the streets here in Washington, D.C., and I guess they just blew into the White House and maybe blew up the nose of someone in the White House. I mean, who are they kidding? And the quite obvious question is it Hunter's cocaine? It's fair to ask, given his near constant presence at the White House, so much so that folks have asked, is he living there? And he was there as recently, I know he was there on Friday. They left Friday evening to go to Camp David again with President Biden for who knows what reason. And then obviously he came back and he was there earlier this week over the July 4th holiday. I guess they had a special celebration at the White House then for the fireworks here in Washington, D.C. So was it Hunter? I don't know. You would think you could get a straightforward answer out of the Biden White House about whether it was associated with the family. But of course, they don't want to give you a straightforward answer. They said it's irresponsible to ask the question. So I suspect in the end, and there were headlines saying, and the media has been prepping the battlefield for the Biden White House, saying, we may never know who dropped this dime bag of cocaine in the White House. We may never know. It will be an eternal mystery, just like that Supreme Court leaker, just like everything else that happens in this town that compromises the rule of law. It's, we can never figure out who did the bad thing. We don't know who leaked all this information on Trump out of the Justice Department and targeting him. We don't know who leaked this Supreme Court brief that resulted in death threats and targeting of the Supreme Court in an effort to blow up the Supreme Court. And I think CNN had a headline that said the Secret Service is going to end their investigation, even though they may not know who had left the dime bag behind. Now, so I said I've been in the West Wing, so I know those 2 areas. Now, I don't know what cameras are there about. I just presume there's cameras all over the place. So no one's being fooled here. And so you could just presume the worst. And this is why Judicial Watch has initiated its own investigation into the Biden cocaine scandal. We have our FOIAs to the Secret Service, which has been used and abused before by the Biden gang. You may recall we uncovered and blew the whistle on the fact that Joe Biden's dog had attacked the Secret Service and other White House staff repeatedly, which was contrary to the White House line that there was just one minor incident, and there were several incidents, none of which were minor. You know, imagine being on the wrong end of a German Shepherd dog attack. So, you know, the Secret Service has been treated like dirt by the Biden White House in large measure. And even more recently, Biden was suggesting the Secret Service was lying about the dog attacks. So do you think they're going to do anything serious in terms of exposing Joe Biden's his son's criminal activities potentially in the White House? Especially since, as Judicial Watch has also uncovered through litigation, that both the Secret Service and the FBI, you know, we followed up with litigation based on press reports, helped vacuum up information to protect Hunter Biden from the consequences of having his gun thrown in a garbage can by his then girlfriend, the widow of his dead brother. I mean, just crazy town. And of course, let's go back a step further. Why would we be surprised that Joe Biden's son, Hunter, or just generally there's cocaine in this White House when there's been tens of millions of dollars of money laundered into the Biden family, what I call racketeering operation, by the Chinese, the Russians, the Ukrainians? I mean, given that level of corruption and the cover-up of that corruption, would it be a surprise or unexpected that there be cocaine in this White House? I mean, that's the least of it, don't you think? And the fact that the media is pretending that this is all normal and we may never know who did it, and the sort of casual approach to the crisis of law and order in the White House, it's just a further indictment of this city and the failure of our legal institutions to grapple with this unprecedented corruption in the White House. And I don't want to overstate the corruption involved in having someone bringing coke into the White House, other than the obvious national security and other implications. But to me, it's a symptom of a bigger problem, that the Biden administration has been compromised by the corruption of the president and his family. And there's no getting around it. And that's why I think there's so much public interest here, because Hunter just got, he just got the sweetheart plea deal. There's evidence of corruption involving that sweetheart plea deal, where the FBI and the Justice Department and the IRS colluded and collaborated to protect him and conspired. And so what is Biden's response to this, Joe Biden's response to this? Have Hunter Biden front and center in the White House in social event after social event. Kind of like, the Godfather saying, this is my son and he's untouchable. Thumbing his nose at the cops, practically speaking. So this is why this cocaine issue is important, and it highlights the Biden White House corruption, how other agencies get compromised because of that corruption, namely the Secret Service and other law enforcement responsible for protecting the White House. And of course, if the White House compromises the Secret Service, that compromises the safety and security, not only of the president, but everyone else who the Secret Service protects here in Washington, D.C. So it's just terrible. And but Judicial Watch isn't just going to sit and complain about it. We're going to do our own investigation and see if we can figure out what really went on, because we don't trust this White House or this Secret Service to do it honestly on its own, because the leadership, as I said, consistently fails the American people. So there you have it, the Biden cocaine scandal. I did not think I'd be talking about cocaine in the Biden White House, but here we are. God bless America, right? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.